Well, hey there. Welcome to an Ignite Press book launch livecast. My name is Everett O'Keefe. I'm the founder of Ignite Press, and we are here to help you take your message to the world through a timeless medium, and that is books. And so if you have been working on a book or you've already got a book manuscript written and you want to talk about how to get this out to the world, especially to help build your business or your brand, reach out. You can find us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. But today we've got a fun time in front of us. I have with us Albert Pellissier, and he has written this book, What's on Your Back Burner? Using Dormant Desire to Relight Your Fire. And I am excited to get Albert on here, so I'm going to go straight to it. Albert, big day today with your book launch, huh?
It's been a lot of fun so far, Everett. I was excited about it. I didn't realize how much fun I was going to have today.
Well, it's not every day someone launches a book, and not every day that you get the experience of being that someone. So, congratulations!
Thank you.
Your hard work starts paying off now. So that is fantastic. Oh, by the way, if anyone's in the chat log, whether you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, or even if you're watching the replay, go ahead and put a comment in the chat. Say hi, where you're from. And if you have a question that you want to pass on to Albert, I will try to bring it up later on in our live cast here. It's one of the advantages of this technology. And even if you're doing it on replay, do that anyway. And we'll try to get that message and question to Albert to reach back out to you. So, Albert, before we go any further, why don't you start by telling us a bit about who you are and what you do?
I guess really the best way I'd sum that up came from my neighbor, happened to live across the street from the dean of the LSU Business School. And he invited me up to the university one day for lunch, and I was telling him a little bit about my story. And he says, Albert, you know what you are? You're a lifestyle entrepreneur. And I said, I'd never really heard that phrase before. So I ran home and I look it up, and what it really turns out to be is it's somebody who's in business, not necessarily to grow a big, multi-million-dollar business and employ hundreds of people. It's really someone who goes into business because it affords them the lifestyle that they want to live. So this is really how I've lived my entire life. When I graduated from LSU back in 1987, and I've just been self-employed ever since. Again, not on a grand scale, but in a way that just provided for the lifestyle that I wanted to live, which was mainly about getting to do what I wanted to do every day. And I really have done that almost my entire life.
That's really incredible. Few people get that opportunity, and to get to see the changes that you're making, in other people's lives along the way. Now, what was the impetus? What was your initial thought that resulted in your book? What's on your back burner? What started you on the journey of writing this book?
I think writing a book is probably one of those things that's on a lot of people's back burner over time. I remember even thinking about wanting to, back as a younger guy in my 20s. Usually what you end up thinking is, well, what am I even going to write about? I haven't done enough yet. And the real seed of this book came from really a coaching business. It's coaching mainly men for the last 8 years and taking them on immersion retreats, weekend retreats, and really just trying to help them get over their current challenges and find something fulfilling to do with their lives besides just surviving in whatever job that they were working in. And as I did usually typically 4 of these retreats a year, the processes I came up with and the modules that I would deliver to these guys, over time, they just all really ended up boiling down to this kind of a simple 3-step process that when I put that combination of exercises together, it was mind blowing, not only for me, but for the people I was coaching. And one of those retreats at the end, one of the clients I had been working with for a year, and he knew I wanted to write a book. And he said, as we were closing up shop, he said, "You know, Albert, that's the book." And I said, "What do you mean that's the book?" He said, "What we just did this weekend is the book." And I went home, I thought about what he was saying, and I was really was up to the challenge. Could I take something we had always done in a live format, in a process I was taking people through with, care and guidance? Could it be put in a book form? And this book is really what came out of that experience.
Oh, excellent. I think let's dive into some of the content. But before I do it, let me let everybody know that What's on Your Back Burner is for sale right now on Amazon, where you can pick it up in paperback and in Kindle format. But the Kindle's on a special launch price, and that is 99 cents. You can pick the book up, the Kindle, for 99 cents today. That's a limited time thing, so grab it while it's hot, and grab the paperback too if you like. Also, this is a book that makes a good gift for others, something that you can give them that will really change their lives, honestly, and give them a chance to execute on many of those things that they've thought about for years, that they've wanted to accomplish for years, but just haven't gotten around to doing that. So grab your copy today, and grab one for someone else too. All right. So let me go back here. And so Albert, let's get into the 3 steps, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And tell me about this. Tell me about knot therapy.
So this was really where it all started. I was doing workshops kind of around this idea. And essentially what I'm asking people to start off with is, what is the thing that you've been thinking about maybe your whole life, or, the last 5 or 10 years, or maybe decades? And it's just something, a thought, an idea, some sort of a project or initiative or a goal that you've always wanted to do. You've always wanted to do it, but for whatever reason, you've either never gotten started on it, or you've maybe even attempted to start on it a few times, and it just doesn't go where you want it to go. So, when I ask that question, usually in any kind of workshop audience, if I'm giving a keynote speech or anything, everyone knows what that is, or they can think of it fairly quickly. And so what knot therapy is it's asking people, why do you think you haven't done it? And let them put down all the reasons why they think they haven't done it. And then we turn the whole thing on its head, and we find out the real reasons that people haven't done it. And a lot of the times it's something that they're completely unaware of. Do you want an example, Everett, just to help people make that concrete?
Absolutely.
So I'll just give you a personal example, because this is one of the big turning points of my life, and this is probably what led to me trying to help other people. When I was in my 30s, I'm about to be 62 this April, so this was quite a while back. I had always wanted to get into real estate. And, it's not something easy to do, right? You need a large sum of money, or at least that's the mindset that everybody thinks about. And so, I was young, just starting a family. That was not something that I really had access to. So I told myself this wasn't a possibility for me. And then I ran into this idea of kind of listing all of the things I was telling myself in my head and creating this list. And one of the things that came up while I was doing this process was that when I was a young boy, my father used to tell me that, the only reason that, people were, he was a bartender, just to add a little side note, the only people were in his bar, mainly successful, wealthy men, on a Friday or Saturday night, was that their families couldn't stand them.
Mm.
Their wives loathed them. Their kids, didn't like them. Now, I heard this as I say, a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy. Never thought about it again. But here in my 30s, unconsciously, that idea had woven itself into my subconscious mind. And so, on one hand, I wanted to pursue this real estate career with a goal of becoming wealthy. But at the same time, the little underlying belief that was unconscious to me was that if you became wealthy, that your wife and your children, would really not want to have anything to do with you. Now, I wasn't thinking about that consciously, but it was just in there, subconscious, buried, and it was creating an inner conflict that kept me from doing the things I needed to do to launch that real estate career. Well, let me tell you, as soon as I realized that was the issue, and I made the determination that belief was no longer true, and I was doing this in December of 1999. In January of 2000, I bought my first rental property. And in a matter of 4 months, I ended up with 10 rental units, in 3 different buildings. And this was something I had wanted to do since I was in my 20s. And it took 15 years later, but the idea of tackling this inner conflict that I didn't know was there for me to make progress on it. And that's when I really realized that what holds most people back on almost anything that comes under this category we're talking about around, goals or ideas, it's some little belief or thought that you don't know is there. And so the knot therapy is this little 15, 20-minute opening kickoff exercise we do to kind of delve in to all of these buried subconscious beliefs that are the real reason you don't take action or you don't find success with it. And so that's the game changer. That's how the book starts. That's how my workshops start. And it's always amazing to just watch people sort of come to grips with, once they write it down, they know it's true and they know it's been there holding them back. But until they do the exercise, they have no idea that this is what's going on. And so for me, that's almost the most fulfilling part is being present, during that awakening.
It's got to be amazing to watch the light bulbs turning on as people come to these conclusions. Wow. I mean,
it's crazy, really, honestly, Everett. It's really crazy to hear what people say, and if I'm in a group setting or doing a group workshop, I'll ask the people who are courageous enough to share their insight, and the whole group is just stunned because everything everybody admits to, there's like a little bit of that in ourselves, and we can all relate to it. Go, oh yeah, I've thought that many times myself. So it's not really unique. These are universal, sort of buried beliefs that hold people back. And what's amazing is, in 20 minutes, you can pop them all, right to the surface and go, oh, okay, well, that makes so much more sense. And then as soon as you're literally on your way toward whatever it is that you wanted to do.
That is excellent. Thank you for that example because it's also very concrete and understandable. What's the second step in your process?
The second step is to realize that these little messages, that these little buried, hidden beliefs, are really coming from an aspect of yourself that has a personality. And so in the second phase, what we do is we go in and we kind of analyze what I call this cast of characters that are really, they're you, but they're just like a little hidden aspect of your personality. But they can, they're really powerful. And so a lot of times, their base function is to work against you and thwart your goals, as crazy as that sounds. So they're kind of adversarial. And I know you've heard the statement over time, oh, we're our own worst enemy. What does that mean? Like, why would we be our own? And the truth of it is like, you have certain conscious desires and dreams and goals, but there's another aspect of yourself that doesn't want it to happen. And it has very good reasons for it not to happen. Usually it's a protective mechanism to keep you safe and secure and comfortable and from having to face certain things. And so what we do in the second phase is we go and we dig up all these characters, and then to make it fun and a little bit less, scary in a way, is we give them playful names that kind of identify, really what is their personality, what are they doing. And so a lot of people that they enjoy that too, to just, you'll hear people talk about their characters years later as they kind of help the relationship with these inner aspects of themselves, kind of come to the surface, and you start dealing with them in a more enlightened way.
Wow. All right. And so let's go to the third one, because you said it's a 3-step process.
Yeah. So the third one is, how do you take this cast of characters who, for probably most of your life, have been kind of secretly working against you? Again, they have damn good reasons, and they are trying to protect you in some way, but they're really no longer needed in where you are in your life and your current ambitions, but they're still there causing trouble. So what we do in the third phase is we convert these adversaries into allies. And so you take the same personality that's been working against you, and you find out what they're all about. Like, what is it they want? What's the root of their motivation? What do they need? And you become partners with them. All right. So I think another concrete example here would be good, because like, what is this guy talking about? So I'm doing the first phase that I told you about, the knot therapy. I'm doing it with clients all the time. This is several years back. And, I'm married. I've been married for 36 years. And one thing, if you're going to be married a long time, you learn is, if you're any sort of a coach, you don't coach your wife, if you want to stay married. That's the one thing you do. So, I never involve her or, give her any of the coaching wisdom, that I'm helping my clients with. But she overheard me doing the knot therapy list on the phone with someone. And she said, "What is that?" And so since she asked, I explained it to her. She says, "I want to do it." Okay, now to give you the background, she owns an antique store, and what it turns out, her goal was she wanted to boost sales, but she had already been in the business about 8 years at the time, and just felt like she had hit a ceiling. So we go through the knot therapy, and all kinds of things come up on her list. It's like beliefs that she didn't have enough money to market her business properly, or do the things she wanted to do to promote it. So it was all based kind of in a lack mentality that she didn't really realize was this profound in her life. So we do the character study, and she ends up naming this character inside of herself who sort of never felt she had enough money to do the things she wanted to do. She called her Betty, Petty Betty. And
Petty Betty.
Petty Betty managed the petty cash fund, and Betty was also the one, when they would go out shopping to estate sales and flea markets and things, when my wife would see something that she could buy potentially for resale in her antique store, Petty Betty would say, "Oh, that's too much. You can't pay. You're not going to make any money if you pay this much for that." And so Petty Betty was always in her head telling her, "Don't buy this, don't buy this, don't buy this." So we have the third phase where, we found out what Petty Betty's all about. And Petty Betty just wants to make sure that Lisa doesn't pay too much, for all the things that she's buying for resale. And so they decide to make a deal with each other. that they were going to, Petty Betty was going to loosen up a little bit on the purse strings, because the kind of money they were talking about, Everett, was, I'll give you an example. Say it was a vase for sale, and at the estate sale, maybe it was $20. And Petty Betty was saying, well, you really need to get a better deal, $15 for this vase. Okay, there's only $5 difference. So, I asked my wife, what would this sell for in the store? And she said, $75, $80. So Petty Betty was giving up an $80 sale to really not waste $5, right? That's how petty she was. So the next time she came home from some sort of a sale, it was a Saturday morning, I went out and I looked at the back of her car. She drove, a big SUV. It was so stuffed with things, it was almost, poles sticking out the window of things she bought. And I said, oh my God, what happened? And she, oh, me and Petty Betty, we had a great time. And so, the character was resolved. And so here's something that had held her back, really, for probably that 8 years of her career. She's not aware of it at all. She confronts it, Betty shows herself, they have a conversation, we resolve the character. Instead of, Betty being adversarial and you can't afford this, what Betty learned was that, oh, wow, look how much money we can make if I loosen up a little bit. And her sales, honestly, that year, they went up, I want to say it was like 70%. It was Excellent. A 70% rise. She hit a goal that when she wrote it down, she thought it was insane and impossible. And so, I was very close with this story because it was my wife, who doesn't do any of the sort of coaching, she's not in the self-help books and all that kind of stuff, but just this one character being kind of illuminated and then turning into an ally instead of an adversary. It was completely life-changing for her. And, I have story after story after story, because this is what happens to people when they discover what's really, at work holding them back. The good news is it's always something that they can do something about, because it's just an inner voice, really, that they're probably not really realizing has this much sway over them until it's revealed, during my weekends or workshops or whatever.
Really, that's incredible, Albert. Thank you. Another terrific example. And I have learned I can't coach my wife, and she's probably learned that I'm pretty difficult to coach too. So it seems like a fair thing. But that's what a great story. And I know your wife's super glad that she listened at that at that point.
She told that was probably 5 years ago. Petty Betty was resolved, but like Betty is a character she will mention to this day. That's how much these characters sort of stick around in a playful way. Once they're not working against you, people talk about them years later, and I have tons of clients and they still bring up their characters and just like, oh, somebody's back or whatever. They see them in a new way. So it's really just making something fun, that could seem like heavy or a drag. And that's really my specialty. Is I try to make everything simple, doable, practical, easy, because that's how I like it. This is the lifestyle entrepreneur. A lifestyle entrepreneur is that way because we're looking for the easy way out. We want to get the most benefit for the least amount of work or input. And so I design all of my processes to be that same way. I know people don't want to read a big, thick book. That's why this book is a few pages. It is, and thin and readable. If I pick up a big book, I know when I pick it up, I'm not going to get through it. So I wrote something that I know somebody like me would be willing to make it all the way through. And then the exercise is as easy as it could be to get the bang for the buck that you're going to get if you do the work. Now, look, it still is a little bit of work to do them, but it's the shortest shortcut that I can possibly share with people. That's really the bottom line. Like, I can't make it any shorter than this for the payoff of what they're going to get if they really take themselves through it.
Well, and I love what you've done is creating what could be really hard, not enjoyable work, to make it something fun. And I love the kind of the lighthearted approach that you bring to it as well. Now we've got just a few minutes left here on our live cast, and what I love is you've already given really specific things that I think will help people. Naturally, if people are interested, what they ought to do is pick up the book, right? The book is available today on Amazon, where you can grab the Kindle version for 99 cents. The paperback is also available there. And again, I would recommend, pick up a couple copies. I think that whoever you give this to will be grateful, because you've helped them kind of get out of a rut and get on to something where they can be successful with that thing that's been, that's really been holding them back. Now, I do like to ask this question, because I just never know what people's response will be. But was there a time in the process of writing this book that you found portions of it kind of wrote themselves?
I had been doing this workshop and these retreats for so long that when I hired my book coach, somebody you've worked with plenty, Kathy Fayok, I hate to say it, I'd be one of those people, but each week my homework was to write a chapter, and literally it just poured out of the page. Every single time it just poured onto the page. And I found that part of it to be the easiest, was actually writing the book. And, again, if writing a book is on someone's back burner, I'm going to propose that probably writing the book itself is really not the obstacle. It's something else that they're not aware of. And I just did this workshop with Kathy's clients, who are, their book is somewhere between, still an idea in their head, to some of them who have already written the manuscript but didn't get the book out. And look, I had to use this process myself to get the book out, but it wasn't around the writing part of the book, Everett. It was other things. Again, you wanted me to give you an answer. After I hired your company to publish this book, one of the things was I had an idea in my head that when I first started this project, it was really 10 years ago. And at that time, I was in a different part of my career. I was really looking for a full-time speaking career and, imagining being on the road and traveling and doing presentations. And now where I am career-wise, I really didn't want that full of a schedule. And so one of the little hidden ideas that was keeping me from actually submitting everything you were asking for after I had already hired you was this idea that once this book was launched and published, I was going to be thrust into, this 60-hour work week. And I wasn't consciously aware that this is what was going on, but this was the holdup for me. And so I sat with this manuscript on the corner of my desk saying, "What's on your back burner?" Which this book was what was on my back burner. And to really get over that log jam, I had to bring myself through a round of the knot therapy. And as soon as it popped up that really the issue was this idea that I would have to go to work 60 hours a week, and just told myself, okay, that's not true. It can be any way I want it to be. The next day is when you got a big delivery of all the materials that you had been asking for weeks. And do you remember that day when it happened?
I do.
The log jam was broken. So I had to use the process in the book to get the book written. But to get it published, the writing was really not the problem. And I think that's probably true for a lot of your clients. They can do the writing, but I would be willing to bet that a lot of them have other subconscious ideas about what that means. Whether it means I put my book out and they're worried about getting criticism, or how it's received, or something related to something that has nothing to do with the book itself.
All right. Hey, Albert, thank you so much for coming on today. And for people who want more information, they can reach out to backburnerbook.com. Go to backburnerbook.com and, of course, pick up the book on Amazon. And Albert, thank you again. And I'm going to sign us out here so we can get out of here before the LinkedIn gods get mad at us. But thank you
Albert.
so
Thank
much
you,
for
sir.
having us.
I appreciate everything you've done.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. And we'll go right to here. Take care.